Hello and welcome to season 2 of the Awanachi Conversations. We are excited because in this particular edition or season, we will be bringing the men to the table. And I'm super excited that we have with us on the podcast today, Mr. Muchu Kaingu, who's the co-founder and chief technology officer of Lupiya. Now, Lupiya is a trailblazing platform that's transforming access to credit in Zambia. Muchu is not just a tech innovator and entrepreneur, but also a husband and business partner to Lupiya's CEO, Evelyn Kaingu. Together, they are redefining what it means to build a thriving business as a couple in a society that often questions whether marriages and entrepreneurship can go hand in hand. In this episode, we'll get to know the man behind the title, explore his experiences as a co-founder, and gain insights into his thoughts on women empowerment, running a business as a family, and the impact that Lupiya is making in the financial space. Join me in welcoming Muchu Kaingu. Muchu, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a joy to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Like I mentioned, I told you earlier that you are the first man that we are having on the podcast, on the Awanachi Conversations. So this is very special for us. And thank you for honoring our request to be our guest on the Conversations.
No, you're welcome. I'm very privileged to be here.
Okay. Now, just to set the ball rolling, Muchu, Lupiya has become a household name in the financial technology space. Can you take us through your journey as Lupiya, how this story started to where you are now?
Thank you for the question. This is a question that I always like to answer because it takes me back to the days of starting the business. So before starting Lupiya, my wife and I, Evelyn and I, had a previous business, and it was a trading business. And with that business, we were privileged in the early stages to be awarded a huge contract. But unfortunately, we did not have the financial resources to fund that contract. So we went to our bank and we couldn't qualify for a loan because we did not have the assets to pledge as collateral. We went to the informal market, and unfortunately, the rates were just exorbitant. We're charging 30% per month. So that was all our profits that would have been swallowed by that interest. So we looked around and we saw that people like us, when I say people like us, I mean young African entrepreneurs were facing this problem of access to capital. And it was our call to action. And we were crazy enough to think that we could start a bank with $500. But I'm happy that we did take that leap of faith because it got us to where we are right now.
$500, and here we are. Did you ever have doubts? And I will get to the detail of you and your wife being in this business. Did you ever have doubts to say, should we not? You know, the usual, what if we fail kind of question that pops for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question. And we did have our doubts. Maybe not right in the beginning, because if you think about $500, which is about 6,100 kwacha at the time, it was relatively a small amount of money to start with. So with that, we were happy to put that as seed capital in the business. But then the reality check came when the first cohort of borrowers, like half of that portfolio, went into default, right? And this went on for some time where we're not collecting on all the loans that we were issuing. So then naturally this brings questions to you that is this a viable business? Our customers, bankable customers? But we still stayed on the road, and we convinced ourselves that we're paying the school fees. And we kept learning from the data and refining until we got to a point of comfort.
Okay. Now, I do know in our journey as entrepreneurs, we will have such experiences where we have the big dream and we take the first few steps and we fail. You know, a number of entrepreneurs would just say, you know what, this is it. I'm not going any further with this, what kept you going? And if you don't mind sharing, what were the few lessons that you learned from that point of failure that sort of built you up to continue the journey of Lupiya?
I think I must give a lot of credit to my partner Evelyn. She was very committed to this cause and convinced me that despite the challenges that we were facing, that there was still light at the end of the tunnel. So a lot of credit goes to her, that resilience that she brought into the business, which I would say is one of her key strengths.
That's nice to hear. Now, Muchu, society often discourages, couples from working together. They would rather the husband is doing their own thing, and the wife obviously is doing their own thing. But you already highlight from your previous response about how how Evelyn brings to the table the resilience aspect, and that's what has spurred you to continue with the journey. What are your views around couples working together in a business, especially having walked this journey in the Lupiya story?
Yeah, so it's and we get asked this question quite a lot. But from our own perspective, this is something that we're very intentional about, even getting into our relationship as husband and wife. We were both looking for a life partner who we could do business with, and even when I broached this subject to my parents, the first question my father asked me is that, I know your ambitions. Is the partner who you've chosen one who you can eventually do business with? So we're very intentional about this right from the beginning. And now reflecting upon it, the philosophy that we bring forth, both Evelyn and I, is that we choose life partners to walk this journey with. And it shouldn't just end in the home. It's really about planning your entire lives together. You have children together. And ultimately, our belief, Evelyn and I, is that we work for our children. So if we work for our children, it makes sense then to join forces and leave a strong legacy for our children. And so we're super convinced, we're very bullish that couples should consider working together.
No, you are a business, you are a husband and a business partner to Evelyn. How do you draw a line? How do you decide, okay, now I must be the partner, we're at the office, okay, now I have to be the husband? How do you draw a line, and how do you navigate those two key roles that you're playing currently?
So it's a great question, and the honest answer is that it's challenging to draw the line. And perhaps the broader question is, should we draw the line? Because leading on from my previous response, this is a life partnership. There isn't a difference between Muchu, Evelyn's partner, Muchu, the business partner, or Muchu, the husband. We've decided to walk this path together. So the most important thing is bringing that alignment into our goals, to say, like, as a couple, what is it that we want to achieve? And you find that our life goals and our business goals are aligned, so that then there isn't conflict between the two areas of our lives.
Okay. Now, your wife is the CEO of Lupiya, and we keep referring to Evelyn. Next time, we'll have to make sure she's on set with you. That will be interesting.
Yes.
So your wife is the CEO of Lupiya. What does it mean for you to work alongside her and to see her leading the change in the industry that has been previously male-dominated?
Yeah, so this is that's a very good question, and for me, as I reflect on our journey, first of all, it brings me a lot of pride. A lot of my life's work has been on creating equity, and it doesn't have to be financial equity. In fact, one of my previous businesses was around legal equity, like ensuring that everybody has equal access to the law and can make better decisions when it comes to the law. So for me, it brings me a lot of pride that from the gender lens angle, that my wife has grown on this journey. She's not the same person who we started the journey on. She's grown into this great leader that a lot of people, a lot of women look up to, and a lot of just society, like men, women look up to her, and it's a great thing. And that gives me a lot of pleasure. The other thing that I think about is around leadership. It's one of my strong beliefs that leadership it's not about gender. It's really about capability. And Evelyn has grown this business from when we started with only 6,100 kwacha to a multi-million dollar business, multinational business. So we're in Tanzania as well. So it's really, for me, it's really encouraging to see my wife achieve these things. And broadly speaking, it's something that I believe should encourage more women to take on leadership roles in our society.
You know, this conversation is so heartwarming. It's not every day that you hear a man publicly declare about how proud they are of how their partner or their wife is excelling in whatever business they're doing. So it's really encouraging. And thank you for being such a support, not only to your wife, but I think to the women at large. Now, getting to your business as Lupiya, women empowerment is clearly at the core of your business as Lupiya. How do you, as the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder, ensure that women are prioritized in your company's operations and outreach, and then also in terms of their clients? Is there any consideration that is given to women? Maybe you could take us through that.
Yes, so it's all about the data. So we ensure that as we look at the parameters that we choose to lend, we choose parameters that are fair to both genders. We know some of the areas where women have statistically been disadvantaged, and regardless of that, our data shows that women are better borrowers because there's this element of responsibility. They borrow and they think about, oh, this is for my family. I need to look after my family. Therefore, I have to be responsible in the way I deploy the capital. And this is reflective in our data in terms of the performance of female borrowers. So we're very intentional about those parameters, creating this, I'll call it a slight bias to ensuring that more women can qualify for our loans. And then even just now on the personal side, the role that I play at Lupiya, and you asked this question like, oh, how is it like, oh, your wife is CEO and you are supporting her. Even that, it goes all the way into the team as well, where we're encouraging a lot of the female team members to take on leadership roles. Obviously, it's done equitably. It's 50-50 based on merit. However, that encouragement is still there for women to take leadership roles. So as you can see, it's a 360-degree approach. It's not just about serving the customers, but then how do we also impart some of those values internally and ensure that we are walking the talk ourselves?
Okay, that's encouraging. Now, what have you learned about leadership and collaboration from working very closely with your wife? Has it changed how you approach challenges in business and in life as well?
Yes, so it's been very eye-opening. In terms of how we interact, and it's even fostered a stronger belief that leadership is not about having all the right answers, but rather creating an environment or atmosphere for people to bring out their best. So that's what we do at Lupiya. You find that Lupiya has this open culture where we like people to really speak up whenever there are issues. We have this collaborative decision making or solutioning around that problem. It's taught me a lot of, I would say, broader view. Just like between my partner and I, sometimes we've got like different views. We look at things differently, and rather than taking my approach, it taught me to then take a step back and see things from my partner's viewpoint. And I found that most of the time, when we put these different viewpoints together, we end up with a stronger solution than just one of the two viewpoints. And then the other thing is also the element of patience, patience from the perspective of this approach of weighing the different viewpoints requires patience, because ultimately you would be able to make a decision to say like, okay, I'm going to do this, but then taking a step back, being patient in the decision making, reviewing all the viewpoints, and then coming to a better decision, I found is a more effective leadership method.
I like how you mentioned the component of patience. And I'm going to ask you a question on the spot. How do you handle conflict on the business side? I'm not going to, the personal side, we won't get into that detail. But in the business space, how do you and Evelyn handle conflict, or where you're seeing things from different perspectives, or you are not just seeing the light, both of you are saying, it should be this, it should be this. How do you navigate that? Because I know it should be part of running a business as a couple.
Yeah. So there's, thanks for that question. So there's a lot of discussion that goes into it, and then we also, part of the solution to, so we created a broader framework to solution around this area is we have taken ourselves out of a lot of the decision overload. So it's not about Muchu or Evelyn's decision. We arrive at collaborative decisions as a team. And we also do a lot of empowerment in terms of the team, where the leaders take a lot of ownership in what they're doing. So you find that there are very few instances where Evelyn or myself have to weigh in. Ultimately, because we have a very strong team around us, and we make collaborative decisions. So it's the conflict, the area of conflict is reduced because it's not a single person's decision, it's a collaborative decision.
Amazing. That's a masterclass right there. A masterclass in business for couples. Now, you are in the tech space, fintech, as Lupiya, and the aspect of financial inclusion can never be overemphasized. We know that as a country, we are growing in terms of technology. There's still a number of unserved communities. There's still a few marginalized people that may not have access to this technology. What do you think the future looks like for women in particular on issues of financial inclusivity, especially with regards to access to technology? First of all, maybe from a tech space, you could just maybe highlight to us where we are as a country, as Zambia, in terms of technology, and also just what does the future look like for us?
So that's a great question. I think back to when we started Lupiya. I think I can safely say that we were the first company to provide a completely online end-to-end process. And now, fast track to today, we've seen more and more players adopting this model. So from that perspective, we've proven a model that, yes, we can reach customers faster. with online channels. And we've also proven that the customers are also hungry for this sort of service where they can apply for loans online and they can access additional financial services online. So we have progressed, to answer your question, as a country, from the early days when there was like a single player providing online services to now where more and more financial players are offering online services. Even the big banks, we've seen them taking the approach where they are fostering more and more online services. However, I fear that we are also lagging behind in terms of, if I compare where we are with more advanced countries, I would like to see a lot more automated systems using artificial intelligence. We talk about AI agents, which the whole world now is raving about. But if I look here, we are not close to AI agents. And why is this important? I think broadly it answers your question around inclusion. What AI agents would be able to do for us is, from a customer experience perspective, is reach more and more customers, whereas a human agent might be limited as to the number of languages they can speak. For example, an AI agent can be trained to speak all 72 languages. And to teach a single human being 72 languages, I think you know how long that would take. For an AI agent, very short period of time. An AI agent would understand customers a little bit more based on the data, whereas human beings, we have blind spots in terms of how we analyze data. So much so that even at Lupiya, when we look at our credit scoring models, and it speaks to your earlier question around how we better serve women, there's a wealth of knowledge that is hidden in the data that we are collecting. And some of the things that we pick on to say like, oh, this is an effective way of lending, as human beings would have never been able to draw those patterns from the data, but a machine can. So speaking about that, I think there's a lot that we need to do as a country, invest more and more in technology, invest more and more in artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's definitely the way to go. Like, I like the example that you use, that you can teach AI 72 languages, and I think we definitely have a long way to go as a country. But I always believe better to start than not have anything happening at all. So kudos to you for starting that process. But I'd ask a question also just around issues of data mining, data collecting. I tend to think as a country we don't do that very well, especially around data on customers. I don't know whether it's a cultural issue or is it a lack of access to technology. I'd like to pick your thoughts on that.
Okay, so your question has two facets from the way I understand it. One, yes, you're quite right that we're not doing as much as possible to collect the data, but even when we collect it, that's the second facet. We're not leveraging that data to its maximum capacity. So one thing that I'm definitely happy about is more and more countries in Africa like being a bit more bullish about data residency, realizing that there's a lot of gold that sits in that data. So that's obviously a good direction. But I think a lot more organizations should be more intentional about leveraging more insights in their data to better serve their customers. There's a wealth of knowledge in that data.
Absolutely. Now, Muchu, time does fly on the podcast. I did warn you. As we are winding up, I just wanted to pick your mind, or just for you to share your experiences. I know you've been in the business for quite a while in the fintech space, and then also just empowering women and, of course, men. Could you share with us what have been some of your highlights? We've talked about the challenges, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that it's been part of the journey. But what have been some of your highlights? You could give us even 2 or 3 as Lupiya, moments that you look back to and say, the sacrifice was worth it? Embarking on this journey was worth it. Could you share maybe 2, 3 of them?
Thanks. I can think about a few. So one of the first ones was in 2020. So we had been running Lupiya, bootstrapping it, funding it from pocket. We did friends and family rounds. It was still a relatively unknown entity in Zambia at that time. We had a little store at Foxdale Court where we were 3 employees. So there was Evelyn, myself, and a loan officer. And still, in all of that humbleness in the beginning, we still had enough traction to then start talking to institutional investors. So we reached alignment with an institutional investor from the US, and they liked our business model. They saw the potential, and just as we were inching closer to signing a deal with them, COVID broke out.
Oh, the COVID.
Yes. And at the time, our business was more brick and mortar, because we were serving all the customers from that store. Customers would come and apply, and then would disburse their funds in cash. In that model, COVID said, no, this model is not going to work. You might as well shut down this business. And the investors told us that, like, this business model is not going to work in the COVID world. So we were forced to think very quickly on our feet. We were forced to pivot the business from that model to a completely online model. As luck would have it, luck always favors like the prepared. So I'm a software engineer, so I was able to build the first version of Lupiya myself. So we did that, and we saw the most loan applications that we had ever seen in the business using the online model. And for us, that was like very eye-opening. For the investor, they were so happy to say, oh yes, this model is going to work now. We're going to invest in you. And at that point, at the peak of COVID, when companies were shutting down, we raised $1 million of seed capital. So for me, that was a proud moment. The second proud moment was we saw an advert. In fact, a good friend of mine, Simunza from Bongo Hive, reached out to me and said, hey, there's an advert. Google has put out an advert that they want to invest in Black founders. And I saw the advert, super excited. Oh, we're going to definitely apply for this. And when I read the fine print, right at the bottom, they listed out countries that they were willing to fund, and Zambia wasn't there. So I said, okay. So it was first, it hit me, like you feel this in your gut and say, oof, okay. I'm excluded here.
Yeah.
But then what do? We said, no, we're not going to take this as a no. So luckily I had some contacts from Google. I wrote to them and said, hey guys, what's this about? Like, why are you?
My country.
Yeah. Where's my country? Yeah. And wrote a nice little story about Zambia, the background, like how the startup ecosystem was growing, and also the great work that we were doing with Lupiya. And they said, okay, this is great. We love what you guys are doing. We'll allow you to apply, but we're still not going to add your country at the moment. So I said, okay, we'll take that as a win. And we did apply, and we made it into the first 30 countries in Africa to be funded by Google.
Oh,
so that was another proud moment.
Amazing.
And the third one was...
we like to hear the success stories as well.
The third one was when Kamala Harris was coming into the country. So the US Embassy reached out to us because both Evelyn and I are alumni of their programs, and she wanted to see some of the work that we're doing. So we ended up taking her to one of our customers, a farm that's solar enabled, and so she was very impressed about the the proliferation of digital financial services and how it was impacting like smart agriculture. And so that was another proud moment to be able to meet the vice president of the US at the time, and also take our son to meet her because he has political ambitions. So that was super, super
Wow.
proud moment. Yeah.
Nice to hear about those proud moments, Muchu, because I know that this journey can be quite tough.
Yeah.
But when you look at those proud moments, you're like, okay, yeah, it's really been worth it. Now, as a leader, Muchu, in the fintech space, what's your vision for for Lupiya? Where do we see Lupiya in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years?
First of all, I must say that we are very proud of where we've reached as a company from our humble beginnings. But to answer your question, I see Lupiya in Zambia to be a very prolific service or offering to customers. Even when you're not using Lupiya, you are going to be using Lupiya. So that's super, super interesting. We're getting into payments now. So from lending, now we're adding payments. So we have a wallet enabling you to make easy payments. And one of the interesting things that we're doing now is embedded credit. So, and this is why I'm saying, like, even when you're not, even though you're not aware that you're using Lupiya, you might be using Lupiya. So on Yango, for example, we've embedded Lupiya on Yango so that initially drivers can access credit through the Yango app, and we're powering that. And then we're gonna extend this to riders as well. So you might be riding a Yango and realize that, oh, maybe one of your primary payment methods is not working, or you just don't have the cash at that moment. You would be able to borrow from Lupiya in real time and pay for that ride.
Definitely great things coming up for Lupiya. And last but not the least, Muchu, there could be an entrepreneur out there who's in this space of, I'm afraid I might fail if I decide to step out. What would be your word to that entrepreneur who's thinking, better I stay back? This journey is difficult. I might not succeed. That person who's in a place of doubt, what would be your final word? Particularly a woman. You know, we like to see women empowered, but most times women struggle with the imposter syndrome. Women struggle with just the self-confidence to make the step. What would be your word, your final word to such a one?
That's a great question. The first thing is that you only have this one life. If you don't try, then you'll never get the opportunity to try. So you might as well try. The second thing is that we are all stronger than we think. Look inwards and see how much value you're keeping to yourself, how much more value you can bring to the world to impact more people. So if I think about if someone is, and this is like usually what happens, like someone is in a comfortable job. If you're in that job, how many people are you serving? Against, if you started your own business, how many more people would you be able to serve with all of that value that you're holding within you? And the third thing is, it's not rocket science. There are a lot of case studies that can be leveraged. So looking around and seeing like all these different people who are doing these things. If you look at our story, for example, we're just ordinary Zambians, but with a crazy dream of impacting millions of people. And we started with a very small amount of money. So there's nothing special about us. But the only thing is that, one, we got started. We just faced that fear head on and we started. And the second thing is that we stayed on the journey. And we don't see that often enough. Entrepreneurs don't usually stay long enough on the journey to become experts in what they're doing or to actually learn the ins and outs of the business. So I think those would be my three points of advice.
Okay, Muchu, it's been great having you on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing insights, on Lupiya, on how you're navigating the fintech space, how you're navigating also running a business as a couple with the amazing Evelyn, who we actually did feature in the Awanachi magazine under the women in technology. So we just wish you all the best in all that you're doing as Lupiya. We know that Lupiya is a homegrown story, and those are the stories that give us such pride, because somebody within Zambia will be able to point to you and say, these are from Zambia, and they've been able to make such progress. So thank you so much for gracing our podcast today. We look forward to having you in the future so you can give us a further update on where Lupiya will be.
Well, and thank you for having me. It was a very wonderful conversation to have with you. And I hope to be part of these conversations as you continue impacting more and more women.
Thank you. So there you have it. I've been talking to Mr. Muchu Kaingu. He's the CTO and co-founder of Lupiya. We've been discussing all things couples running businesses. We've been discussing financial inclusion and so much more. And we'd just like to thank Mr. Kaingu for taking time to be part of the podcast. I've been your host, Mpunga Chipepo-Simukwai. Please do join me for another exciting podcast pretty soon. Bye.